Welcome to the Watch Society.
Welcome to the weekly Watch News Roundup. The big news this week was a big watch out of Omega, which is the Planet Ocean Worldtime. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Worldtime complication at Omega, it's been in the Aquaterra for a few years now. It's been a big hit because it looks really good in that Aquaterra case, and the proportions are a little chunkier than the typical Aquaterra, but still look good. Now, when it's put in the Planet Ocean case, I still think it looks good. There's a black dial with a black ceramic case or a Tiffany blue accented dial in that same black ceramic case. Both of these on pictures look great. But when we say beefed up, this thing is ridiculous. At 45.5 millimeters across, yes, it's a big watch, but at somewhere between 17.5 and 18 millimeters thick, depending on who you ask, this thing takes all sense of proportion and just yeets it out the window. It is a bit much when you're talking about something that's bigger than the hockey puck that is the original MA.D.2. This thing is huge on the wrist. I mean, 18 millimeters. Yes, it's a 600 meter dive watch. And in Omega units, that's like 337 Daniel Craig's. But if you look at what Ming has done recently, where they have a bezel-less 600 meter dive watch in the Ming Uni and Ming Bluefin that is less than 13 millimeters tall. In fact, it's like 12.5 millimeters tall. It shows you don't need 600 meters to be this giant, thick watch. It can be a regular dive watch nowadays. So I think this thing looks great. And with the black ceramic and the Planet Ocean, it does have a 50% premium in price over the normal Aquaterra Worldtimer at $14,800. Some think it's a bit much. I do think it's a little high, but grab it in the aftermarket, you'll be fine. I do really think that these dials look great and the case looks great, but the thickness needs to come down. Bring it down to a Breitling level 15 millimeters or something like that. I think it would look good, even if the proportions are still 45 millimeters across. That could also come down to 43, 42. I think it would look like a big dive watch with a great complication. There's no reason for this thing to be this big and thick. Omega has the technology. They have the craftsmanship to not make this thing a monstrosity in order to fit everything in it, because the Worldtime complication is not that much additive and their movements aren't that thick to begin with. You don't need that much robustness to have a 600 meter dive watch. So on the design team Omega, I think this looks great in pictures. On the design side Omega though, I'm not sure if many people are going to like how this feels on the wrist just because it's a giant on the wrist. But you never know. There's some people who love big watches and never left the early 2000s style. Now, the next watch was actually supposed to be announced next week, but because of internet leaks, the announcement was pushed up to this week, and that is the new MB&F M.A.D.2. So if you're not familiar, the MA.D.1 was a chance for people to get that MB&F style at a price tag closer to $3,000 rather than $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. And it's absolutely been a success. Everyone I know loves it. It's a different take on a watch, which is the entire point of MB&F, is to look at a watch and bring some art to it. And even with the new iteration, the MA.D.1S, it brought that down to a much more wearable thickness, and it's been a huge success. I have the MA.D.1S, absolutely love it. And now the next gen comes out, the MA.D.2. Starting April 1st, you can sign up for the lottery to try and win one of these, which means you're able to purchase one for, again, about $3,000 US. This time, instead of inverting and just showing you the fidget spinner it is on top of the MA.D.1, it's actually a time display up top with a jump hour on the left and a dragging minutes on the right. The entire thing's supposed to look like a DJ turntable and kind of have that vinyl grooves in the top. And along the edge, you still have that fidget spinner thing that the MA.D. series has been known for, with the edge having a clear view of the rotor spinning around. It's a much more easily wearable watch than the MA.D.1 at 42 millimeters across, but like 12 millimeters thick. Now it's coming in two colors. You have orange for those who are part of the tribe, which are MB&F owners. It's kind of a reward for helping support Max Booster and the MB&F team by buying the really expensive pieces. And for everyone else, there's the raffle, which allows you to buy the green piece. I absolutely love these. I love the idea of there being a raffle and chance and not just a first come, first serve who has the quick internet finger to be able to buy one of these, which usually ends up being some sort of flipper. Instead, it's just random and hopefully people don't flip them as much. And that's worked out well. Yes, of course, people sell and flip them and they have every right to, because sometimes you don't fall in love with it in person. But it's nice that most of these go to people who want them and actual collectors that will enjoy them. So thank you again for MB&F for doing something that's fun while at a more approachable price point, because it really helps bring more of the community into these artistic side of watches besides the time-only ones. I think this one will be just as big a hit as the original MA.D.2 one was. Now, I will say for the next watch, I'm a little bit biased because the Maurice Lacroix Aikon to me is one of those hidden gems in the watch world that doesn't get enough love and appreciation. In fact, I'm wearing one today. They're beautiful, comfortable watches that I think should really deserve a look if you want something in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. This week, they released the Maurice Lacroix Aikon Watto watch. Now, Watto is a street artist out of England who lives in LA now, but like many watch companies, Alec Monopoly with Tag, Hublot's worked with Brito, Takashi Murakami, Daniel Arsham has worked with Hublot. Even the Banksy estate has done watches. I have to say, I really enjoy when these two worlds collide. It allows for something new in the watch world. And this is a great example of, yes, it's taste specific. Not everyone's going to love it. But if you do like street art or you like tattoo flash art, this will look really cool to you. And for me, I love that. I think this looks really cool. This is a fun watch. It is not your only watch unless maybe you're a tattoo artist. I think it could look kind of cool. But for most people, this will be the extra fun watch. But I kind of want to put it on. I want to go back to my old haunts at Miami Beach. I just want to relax with a drink in hand and enjoy time with this watch is how I feel. It makes me feel happy. It's enjoyable. It's a fun watch in a way that's not just a throwaway Timex fun or G-Shock fun. This is something that actually has some thought and art to it. And for others, they'll look at this and just see scribbles on a watch. That's fine. I know it's not for everybody, but if you like this design, check it out. Again, the Aikon watch is a fantastic watch. Limited edition of about 1,000 pieces for $3,300. I think it's well worth the price. If this speaks to you, go for it. This one is a cool one. Now, Hamilton has had a long history of making watches for movies. Interstellar, Dune 2, Tenet, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and even Indiana Jones, where they created a Hamilton Boulton. Now Hamilton has created that watch not for a movie, but for a video game called Death Stranding 2. Now, you don't need to know anything about the video game to appreciate this watch. Just imagine that Indiana Jones Hamilton Boulton, but thrown hundreds of years in the future in a post-apocalyptic world. I mean, this thing is built for the apocalypse. Black PVD coating, orange hand, titanium cage. This thing looks like you can just strap on, go deal with zombies or aliens invading, kill everything, and just check the time and see how long it took you afterwards. It is a great looking watch in concept and I think in execution. The more 48 millimeter lug to lug, it's going to wear similar to a Speedmaster on the wrist when it comes to how far across your wrist it goes. So this thing will fit most wrists if you're used to a modern watch. It doesn't fit like that old Hamilton Boulton from the Indiana Jones films. Those were very much the classic size that a lot of us don't like anymore. We don't like a watch that just barely fits on the wrist. We like something to fit our wrist. And this is a watch that's like that. $1,500 and 2,000 pieces being made. It's not going to be too hard to find. I think the price is very reasonable for this, futuristic, specifically designed watch and powered by the Powermatic 80, which is a solid movement. Overall, fun design. I love to see more of these custom watches made for video games or for movies. They bring another love that a lot of us have to watches. So thank you, Hamilton. Keep it up. Now, lastly, I want to raise a glass to Jean-Pierre Hagmann, who we lost this week. Jean-Pierre Hagmann is a legend in the watch industry, and this past year actually got the GPHG Lifetime Achievement Award, a special jury prize. and has basically given all the awards to him this past year, which is long deserved. His history is unique. He is the rare person who is known not for his movements or his finishing or his watches in its entirety, but actually as a case maker. That is a really rare thing to be known for. That's how good he was. And if you really want to dive into who he was and what his life was, Watches TV actually did a great interview with him just 3 months ago, and was an hour-long conversation talking about his life and his philosophy of watches and how he got there. It's well worth a watch. I'll leave it down in the description, a link. But let's just a quick overview of who Jean-Pierre Hagmann was. Now, Jean-Pierre Hagmann had a very interesting road to becoming a case maker. He went to school for jewelry design and jewelry making, but like many in the Swiss world that grew up around watches, they tend to rebel a little bit against it before ending up in watches anyways. And his road was interesting. He worked as a holiday ice show clown. He worked as a coffee repairman for coffee machines in Geneva. He worked as a motorcycle repairman and actually got a really good reputation for working on racing motorcycles, and became well known in the world of motorcycle racing as being the guy to go to help fix crankshafts and things like that in your motorcycle. But after 20 something years of doing these things, he ended up back in jewelry making, in watch bracelets specifically. And that led to where he was working for them to notice his skill and gave him the ability to try new things. And that's how he got into making watch cases. He quickly moved from working for somebody else to opening his own shop in 1983. That sounds like a while ago for watches, and probably not the greatest time to open your own small boutique custom watch case making factory at the age of 43. But that's what he did. And he quickly became known as the guy you went to for not just a very well-made case, but for minute repeaters. His cases had a special sound to them that brought life to these minute repeaters, and he became a legend for making those. One of his first big customers was Jean-Claude Biver, coming to him for the newly launched Blancpain brand and having him make these minute repeating cases. And the legend just kind of grew from there. He made watches for brands from Breitling to Audemars Piguet to Vacheron Constantin, mostly known for his Patek Philippe master complication cases. When Patek Philippe wanted to make these high-end watches with minute repeaters in them, now each of these watches has his initial stamped on either the lug or the case back somewhere. So if you have a Jean-Pierre Hagmann case, you'll know it because somewhere there will be his initials. And that became a selling point in the auction world, knowing that your case was made by him, because he didn't use CNC machines. He didn't use newer tools. He was known for still using graph paper and pencil to design the case and the proportions, then go to the lathe and make everything by hand. Every single lug that would be soldered on to the case mid, to the top, every single piece. We're used to CNC machines that can make a 3-piece case. His cases were 15 pieces that were all put together and still incredibly thin and beautiful. Now, he worked for 30-something years in his own factory before selling it to Vacheron Constantin, which he was working for by developing cases for them, but also training the next generation of case makers. And that retirement did not last long. Quickly, he was reached out to a new young watchmaker, the guys over at Acrivia, and they brought him in to teach another group of case makers how to do things his way, from graph paper, hand tools, doing everything from scratch. So if you have a Rexepi watch from Acrivia, you got a Jean-Paul Hagmann case. Like, it is still his hands in there, not only just making it, but also training multiple people how to do this for the next generation so the skill doesn't die. And he's still worked for other people here and there. In fact, the thing that we'll lose with losing him at this time is he was just commissioned to make the prototype cases for the next Universal Genève. So Breitling is relaunching Universal Genève, and they've come out with a few watches that are basically clones of the old pole router, but they had new cases and new watches coming out, and those cases were supposed to be made by Jean-Pierre Hagmann first as prototypes. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see those by his hand. Maybe one of his apprentices will get to it. This is one of those old style craftsmen that thankfully was around long enough to train the next generation at a time when watchmaking art was being lost so quickly. He stepped in and built upon that and still used the old style, the handcrafting, to do things with as much art and soul to it as possible. And obviously, because of how long that takes and the expertise, you're only going to find that in the highest, most expensive watches. But thankfully, it is around. That skill is still taught, and it's because of him. He is the only person I can think of that is known for their cases alone. So Jean-Pierre, thank you for the work you did. Thank you for the love you put into the craftsmanship and the art of watchmaking. You will be missed. Here's to you. Thank you for joining me on this week's Watch News Roundup. If there's any watches that you love that came out this week, let us know in the comments. And make sure to check out that Jean-Pierre Hagmann interview. Is well worth a listen to get a little deeper appreciation for everything that went into making these watches and cases. Have a good weekend.